because underneath every superior mask is a feeling and a sensation of feeling inferior. I have to do the work energetically to go in and find, where do I feel inferior? Why do I feel inferior? What is in there? And one of the places that I felt so inferior is, as I mentioned before, this fear that lives within me, this sensation of being powerless and small, because I lacked the ability to go inside of that pain and bring what we worked on in the past couple of days, the way of compassion, the way of harmlessness and gentleness. Life is so much more enjoyable. I no longer have to live in judgment or spiraling into these places of, oh my God, I'm so inferior, I suck. When I'm able to just see myself as an individual, unique expression of source consciousness, which is no better or no worse than any other being on this planet, right? It allows so much grace, so much purity, so much divinity to flow through my life. The way of equality. This is the 9th way of oneness. I'm going to be breaking down each and every way, the 20 ways of oneness. This is Rachel Fiori's work, what she came here into this world to help humanity elevate to oneness consciousness. So the 9th way of oneness is the way of equality. And when I was doing this activation this morning, the first thing that came up is just that sensation of feeling inferior. So as I've learned from Rachel, as the way of equality, inferior, superior, this whole dynamic does not exist. It doesn't exist in the way of equality. It doesn't mean there aren't higher levels, right? The analogy she always gives is, if you are in school, there are people who are a higher grade than you, of course, but that doesn't make them superior, right? It doesn't mean my inherent worth as a human being is lower, that I am somehow not good enough or not as important or not worthy enough in any capacity because I'm in a lower grade. And where my wounding has originated from this is that I have all these memories of being around my physically larger father when I was just a young baby, a young child, and feeling him being really angry and me feeling very small and inferior and scared, right? And it isn't to say like he would go around, I was not abusive in it in any capacity like that, but just feeling him being angry, right, as a sensitive child, was enough for me to feel so scared and see how big he was and how angry and powerful that seemed to me as a little child. That was enough for me to feel inferior. And that is as simple as it is to right there. There is fear program running, there is a powerless program running, and there is inferiority. And I felt very small. So that is my cluster of programming that gets activated. And and this is how I felt most of my life, when I don't want to feel that, when that starts to come up, one of the coping mechanisms that I learned to this, and this is widely done throughout the world with most people, is that I lack the power to feel that level of inferiority. It doesn't feel good. So what does feel better to that part of me is feeling superior. And again, I absorbed that programming when I was young from people around me, especially my dad, is that I don't like to feel what it feels like to feel inferior, so let me jump to superiority because that feels a lot better to that shadow part of me, right? It's not the real me, right? But to that wounded, fractured or fragmented part of me that doesn't know how to feel the fear, the powerlessness, the inferiority that's in there, it feels better for me to, let me jump into superiority. Let me puff out my chest. Let me look down on you, little one, right? When I feel superior, I can look down and I don't have to feel what it feels like to be inferior. So this is how that dynamic is created between inferior, superior, right? And in reality, none of that actually exists, right? The way that Rachel always describes it. And by the way, these are the 20 Universal Ways of Oneness. If you have not bought this book, these are Rachel's teachings, what we're going to be going into today. If if I'm not vibrating as the way of equality, meaning it doesn't mean that there aren't like higher and lower. And the analogy she always gives is if I'm at school, right, and I'm in a lower grade, say I'm in fifth grade, then ninth grade, 10th grade, they're higher than me. It doesn't mean they're superior. It doesn't mean that I inherently don't have any worth because somebody is in a higher grade than me. It doesn't mean that I'm less important as a human being, but they are further along, they are higher than me, right? And this is where our minds kind of get a little confused because we're so low in our level of consciousness, is that we can't understand that there are such things as higher levels without them being superior. Why? Because we lack equality. We lack what that means because we run all of these programs of inferior, superior, and then we project that outwardly. That's how our consciousness projects outwardly, is that when I hear somebody talk about being more advanced, if I lack equality, I will project superiority and inferiority. Right? And I hear this all the time of whenever I'm talking about, oh, that's a higher level of consciousness. Oh, well, you're just being, you think you're so much better. No, 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 no. Rachel is a higher level of consciousness than I am, way higher. That doesn't mean she's superior in the sense of she's more inherently more important, right? That lacks equality, right? When we're able to become the way of equality, what she's teaching, it means that we've dissolved all of that programming. And I have been working at this a lot over the last, especially the last year, is seeing all of the places where I lack equality, where I lack the ability to see my own self in my own divinity. Now, when I carry all of that wounding of feeling inferior, right, it severs me off from being grounded into this human experience. And where I tend to go is I jump into my mind and I try and be superior. And what that does is it creates this false reality of I'm better, I'm superior, so I can look down on someone else. And of course, then judgment starts to creep in there, right? When I'm looking down on someone else. And obviously, I absorbed a lot of this as a child. And so it's learning how to see that programming and start to hear what's underneath it. Because the superiority is a mask. And this is something, especially as a as a white male, this is something that I've been heavily conditioned to be. Because in this stupid world that we live in, apparently someone decided somewhere along the way that racism should be a thing and that we've all bought into it and that white men are the ones who have literally dominated the planet. So yeah, I have received a lot of white male privilege, conditioning, racism that I've had to work through and dissolve. And that means I have to actually go inside, because underneath every superior mask is a feeling and a sensation of feeling inferior. I have to do the work energetically to go in and find, where do I feel inferior? Why do I feel inferior? What is in there? And one of the places that I felt so inferior is, as I mentioned before, this fear that lives within me, this sensation of being powerless and small, because I lacked the ability to go inside of that pain and bring what we worked on in the past couple of days, the way of compassion, the way of harmlessness and gentleness, because I lacked that transformative power of activating the divine feminine power that I am to that pain. Because I lacked that, I wasn't able to actually be equal, see myself as equal. So I would push myself down off the pedestal internally. I'm not powerful. I don't have the ability to nurture and love myself. So I would then look for that nurturing outside of me because I knew I needed it. When I felt really inferior, I knew I needed nurturing. I knew there was parts of me that were scared and felt small and they needed nurturing and emotionally maturing. I craved that feminine love. I needed that. But I didn't see myself as that. I didn't see myself as having that power. So I saw my own self as inferior in that way. And so this is where I would put women on a pedestal because they have more power than me. They have more divine nurturing, energetic power to heal and transform. And instead of seeing that and learning how to find that within inside my own self, I would put others on a pedestal. I will put women on a pedestal, right? Which is kind of the opposite of what we've been brainwashed as men to do. And there are programs that don't do that, right? This is the misogynistic patriarchal programming that actually put men on a pedestal. None of these pedestals need to exist, right? And all of them lack equality. Doesn't matter who you're putting on a pedestal, it's the pedestal that needs to be dissolved. It's the act of doing that. So this is what I was working through today, is seeing this programming the way it shows up of, oh man, here is where I feel inferior. Here is where fear still lives within me. Let me love it. Let me feel what it feels like to be in that contracted state and feel, another being who is so much physically bigger and scarier, maybe feels a little out of control and angry and violent to a degree. And let me grow in my power and stop seeing myself as so inferior and small. Even if I'm having this experience of feeling like a curled up, afraid child, can I connect to my divinity, grow in my power, and activate the way of equality? And then realizing through this process, oh wow, I am the source of this energy too. Yes, I feel it predominantly in women. Yes, I feel it more in women. I feel their energetic power, but I am also that too. It may not be as grand and as great as, as women, because they have more of it. They have more feminine power. They're women. They're feminine. We're all feminine by nature, but they're the embodiment of it, right? So just because I feel more of it in them doesn't mean that it doesn't live within me. I have to do the work energetically to find that power for myself. And when I do, I can anchor more into seeing myself as a powerful being, seeing the ability that I have to nurture and love my own wounding. And now I'm seeing my own divinity. And what that allows is for me to stop having to jump into inferior, superior, and actually just be grounded into my human existence. The way of equality means I'm able to see myself as not grandiose higher and not the wounded, small, afraid inner child that I felt for a lot of my life, but actually a human being. And the more and more and more that I've worked with this way, it has shifted the way that I view other humans. It has shifted the way that I view other animals. It shifted the way that I show up to my amazing dogs. Because this was the last time I was home. I heard my dad say this, oh, it's just a dog. When I hear that, a little bit of my heart breaks, because this is where, and I received a lot of this programming, and I've created this in my life. We see other beings as less than, whether it's we're talking about men seeing women as less than, or we're talking about humans seeing animals as less than. We lack so much equality, and that doesn't mean that I am the caretaker. I am the guardian for my incredible dogs over here. Right? I am here to guide them. They're here to guide me in a lot of ways, right? But I am their caretaker. It doesn't mean that I'm all of a sudden superior to them. And my beautiful dogs, I keep looking this way because they're right here on the couch. They teach me this lesson all of the time. The more and more I connect with them, it's like, no, we are all just beings here to experience life. And the more that I see them as just a dog, that they're lower, the animals are lower than me, the more I'm creating division, the more I'm creating separation, and the less equality that I'm creating on the planet. And I used to just not care in so many ways, even though I thought I cared about dogs in the past. And one of the ways that I really would see this reflection is the way I watch my partner, Ellie, the way that she cares for these dogs, the way that I would be willing to give them tap water, and she always wants to give them the best filtered water. I'm like, wow, I just see these constant reflections of how much I dismiss and brush things off as like, oh, well, they're lower than me. Oh, well, that doesn't matter. Like, I'm the important one. We're the important one as humans on this planet. And the more and more and more that I anchor into my own divinity and I'm able to become what this incredible way of oneness is, the way of equality, it's shifting the way that I show up in the world completely. It's shifting the way that I view other beings, other animals, and I've just seen it create so much more beauty in my life because what it's allowing me to become is more free. I used to be really afraid to show up on camera in certain scenarios because I was worried that I was going to be exposed for being inferior. I was worried that I was going to be judged. And the more and more and more that I've done the work to become this way of oneness, the way of equality, is to not put myself on a pedestal or not put myself lower than people either, to actually just really see us all as equal, to stop, and this was a big program that I've been working on this past month, to stop comparing myself. And this comes up a lot with Rachel, right? I'm following this incredibly wise, incredibly elevated being, someone so incredible that they bring the ways of oneness to the world, right? And how I would compare myself to her, how I would see her as superior, how I would, and it doesn't mean obviously I don't honor, right? We're going to get to honor, the way of honor, in a few days, right? But the more and more and more that I stop comparing myself to her and how elevated and how amazing she is, that when I witness her guiding people through energetic healings and, I'm able to show up instead of trying to compare myself to someone outside of me. I'm able to show up as me. And this is how this way opens the door for who I really am, my soul, to come online and flow through me. When I am trapped as a child, trying to compare, trying to mimic, trying to be someone else for whatever reason, right? Because I don't want to be inferior, right? The more I run those programs, the less I allow my soul to come online and flow through me. And all I want in this lifetime is for that. And when I do that, the level of freedom that I get to then experience through what I'm expressing in my life, even by making these videos, it feels incredible. And I know that when I'm aligned with this frequency, it's so much more enjoyable. Life is so much more enjoyable. I no longer have to live in judgment or spiraling into these places of, oh my God, I'm so inferior, I suck. When I'm able to just see myself as an individual, unique expression of source consciousness, which is no better or no worse than any other being on this planet, right? It allows so much grace, so much purity, so much divinity to flow through my life. So, Way of Equality is a beautiful way. If you are interested in learning more about what these ways of oneness are, we are activating in each and every way for the next we've got about 10 plus days before Lionsgate. We're holding a free activation on Lionsgate 88 itself, and you can go on our portal to oneness and access all of these audio activations in a really beautiful, crisp, high definition audio for completely free. So go to mastersofselfuniversity.com, access the portal to oneness to activate these frequencies for free. And tomorrow we're going to be working on the 10th way of oneness, which I believe is the way of trust. So I'll see you then.